Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody. I'm really excited about tonight's webinar. I'm Steve Glenn. I'm the founder and CEO of Plant Prefab, and we've been trying to do these webinars pretty regularly. We've had a number of architects who have been speaking about the rebuild work they're doing. We've had a general contractor talking about the rebuild work they're doing, and tonight we're featuring two people who are going to talk to you first about a really important fire certification program that really helps you understand the specific strategies that you can employ to dramatically increase your home's fire resilience. And oh, by the way, by so doing, there are insurance companies that are offering discounts. Some actually, I think Laura will confirm, requiring you to have the certification, but I'm less clear about that, but definitely on the discounts. And then we're going to hear from Alexis Pelosi on a new program available to provide grants or low-cost loans to help you fund these improvements. So really excited to have you, Laura and Alexis, join us tonight, and really going to give you both opportunity to talk about your program. And then we're going to leave a big chunk of time for questions and answers at the end. So before we get started, it'd be super helpful, I think, for all of us to quickly go around. If you're willing to share what brings you here, I think that'd be helpful for us. Feel free to speak, or actually, I'll go around and because I see everybody. But again, if you don't want to share, no problem. But Eugene, care to share why you are here tonight?
Forgive me, I'm in the car with family, but I'm a Eaton Canyon resident survivor.
Awesome. Thank you. Uh, Priscilla?
Hi, yes. Yeah, we have a couple of clients. I'm an architect designer, and we have a couple of clients in Malibu. And we just want to get involved and learn as much as we can about the fire resilience.
Awesome. Joshua?
I'm also trying to rebuild after the Eden fire and interested in this program.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, from the Palisades, lost some family homes there, and interested in two need to be remodeled, and one is gone completely. So I'm interested in hearing what you guys have to say.
Awesome. Michael?
Hi, I'm an architect, just interested in plant prefab, and I don't know much about fire resistance. I thought I'd find out about that too.
Great. Hamish? Okay. Hi, Susie. What brings you here?
Hi, from the Palisades, and just looking to remodel my house after all the smoke damage.
Great.
Thank you.
Eva? Hamish?
Hi, in the Palisades, lost our home and looking to rebuild. So just looking for information.
Awesome. And Millard?
Hi, I'm looking for, I'm looking at plant prefab for future reference. Should I buy a lot? And also, I'm trying to help my neighbors rebuild, and some are looking at prefab opportunities. So I like to get more information so that I could help them as well.
Awesome. I should clarify, tonight we're really not going to be talking about plant. Actually, sorry. When we do questions, if you have specific questions, happy to answer. But we're really going to hear from Laura and Alexis on this fire resilient certification program and loan and grant program. That's the webinar for tonight. But happy to, as I said, answer in Q&A or we do in future webinars. We'll talk more about plant prefab. And I should mention we do weekly tours and everybody's invited. Hey, before we get started, I do want to say, and I should have said it before, for those of you who lost your homes, our deepest condolences. My mom grew up in the Palisades. Her home was lost. I would run there every weekend in Temescal Canyon, often with Greg Maruzak, who's part of the call. We've worked with many people who lost their homes to previous fires, Tubbs in Napa and Sonoma, um, uh, uh, Woolsey in Malibu. We're working with a number of folks on rebuild projects. So we have some sense of the stress and the challenge. So I just want to acknowledge that. And I appreciate you joining us tonight. So we're going to start with Laura first, and then we'll go straight into Alexis, and then again we'll have plenty of time for Q&A.
Sure, everybody can see my screen okay. Alrighty. So I'm Laura Blau with Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, and it um, been there for since July. But before that, I spent 28 years with the Orange County Fire Authority, and retired as an assistant chief in the fire marshal. So spent quite a bit of time in the wildfire space. I still live in Orange County, so I'm your neighbor just to the south and available for assistance throughout this process. Um, the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, or IBHS, is a nonprofit independent research organization. And we are funded by the insurance companies. They make up our members. And we work at the intersection of natural disasters and the built environment. We, for 40 years, have been doing wind, rain, and hail. In hurricane country, we have a fortified program that's in a lot of the southern and eastern states. And about 10 years ago, we started doing, at the request of our membership, the insurance companies started doing wildfire. So this is our facility in South Carolina. That's a big wall of fans that you see. And we build a full-scale home inside that big concrete structure. It's on a turntable. We put sensors all over it. And then that wall of fans can generate winds up to 130 miles an hour. And we blow embers at buildings and determine how they fail. And then more importantly, then we equip them, we build them back with different components and figure out how we could stop them from igniting. I'm not going to show you, you guys have seen plenty of fire, but when we blow the embers at it, we assess each building component, construction to California codes, and then find out what more resilience can we add to a structure to stop the ignition. Our real focus, because it's the insurance company focus, is what you all experienced, which was the urban conflagration. And those follow drought. Any amount of drought stresses the vegetation and makes it more easily ignitable. Wind is the single biggest factor, and we have horrific winds throughout California. And then people, 95% of wildfires are started by people. And as we're pushing more homes and people into our interface area, we're going to continue to see these conflagrations unless we start taking action to harden our homes and communities. And so that's what IBHS's focuses on. Just a little bit about, not you've experienced it, but when we look at a wildland fire, we're really looking at how it intersects with the built environment. And the first way it does that is through embers. And the embers hit all aspects of the built environment, your vegetation around your homes, fences, ancillary structures like ADUs and decks, and finally the home itself. And when we look at the various components, I'm not advancing very well here, um, we look at what homes in the community benefit the most from being hardened from direct flame contact, radiant heat, and embers. And then when it gets into urban fuels, we're really looking at structure density to stop a conflagration, how close the structures are together. We're looking at the connective fuels between the home, and that's more than vegetation. That's how close the ancillary structures are, or the attached structures like decks and patio covers. And then we look at the building materials themselves. How, and that's again from based on testing in our lab. I do want to stress, because there's a lot of information on it right now and a lot of controversy around it, the zone 0, that 5-foot non-combustible zone around homes. When we blow embers at homes, you can see that they hit the side of the building. And even if the structure itself is resilient, the roofs, the eaves, it's all built to the new wildfire prepared home standard, those embers fall out and they go out about 5 feet. And we gauge the temperature there, and it is 1200 plus degrees. It can incinerate everything. We're doing plant testing. We've tested everything in that zone, and that's why we require it to be completely non-combustible. I'm going to skip that one too. Once we do our research, full-scale testing in the lab, we validate it. So we do post-fire analysis at all the major wildfires throughout the U.S., Maui, Tubbs Fire, and of course in LA. And we ground truth our science. And so a couple of these, just to point out where we look to harden homes and the perimeter around the homes, it's not just the homes themselves, is where the fencing connects to the home. Even if you have a non-combustible wall around your home instead of combustible fencing, like in the bottom left corner, when you have that combustible component, it can bring the fire to your home like a wick. Same with down here. We did find a lot of synthetic lawn fire that would draw the fire to the fence, a combustible fence. Um, this one surprised us, the trash cans, and just as an anecdote, we took a we went back to our lab and just took a recycle bin, filled it halfway full of recycling materials, put the sensors on it, and when that burns, it's equivalent to 30 gallons of gasoline. So it can generate a lot of heat that can burn through materials if it's close to your home, and then of course plants. Same with hot tubs. That was another one that was a little surprising. A hot tub full of water will melt and burn and generate enough heat to break in through windows. So one of the new requirements in our standard is they need to be 10 feet away. And then all these accessory structures need to be non-combustible or a minimum of 5 to 10 feet away, depending on their combustibility. So what do we do with all of this science? We translate it all into standards that help people build more resiliently. And so we look at around the home and try to reduce the exposure that the home experiences. This one, the landscaping is grown up now. This is the first wildfire prepared home. It is in Paradise. It's a rebuild in Paradise, California. And now the landscaping is grown up around. So it's just that 5-foot zone of non-combustible material. But then you can have trees and bushes. And then we look at the home itself and increase the resilience of the home. So while we're decreasing the exposure by relocating materials away from the home or reducing the amount of material, we also increase the resilience of the home. And what that looks like, I don't usually go into this, but since we have a couple people that are retrofitting, I'm in Orange County in a very high fire hazard severity zone, and I'm doing a retrofit right now. And that's that bottom orange box down there. So we have 2 levels of designation that we provide, and you get a certificate for either level. And you could share that certificate with your insurance company for the discounts that Steve was talking about. So a base level for the retrofit is good for ember protection. It's not great for radiant heat or direct flame impingement, but it gives you pretty good protection from embers, which is the #1 way homes catch on fire. So we're looking at the roof, enclosing the eaves, having a Class A roof, non-combustible gutters and downspouts, no vinyl. We look for metal. And then look at the bottom 6 inches of your home where it intersects that 5 foot non-combustible zone needs to be non-combustible materials like stucco or fiber cement board. And then, of course, the 5 foot zone and the rest of the defensible space. To go to a plus level, which is a really cost-effective rebuild, it adds about 3% to the cost of construction, is putting the covers on your gutter, enclosing the eaves fully, installing non-combustible siding all the way up, not just the bottom 6 inches, upgrading the windows and doors. We look for dual paned glass with both panes tempered. The building code in California only required one pane to be tempered. And then accessory structures 30 feet away, and then make sure that we have non-combustible fencing. So here's what it looks like compared to if you're in a very high fire hazard severity zone, and all of the Palisades is at about 60% of Altadena, then you're already building to Chapter 7A. In January of this year, it will become Part 7 of what we call the California Wildland Urban Interface Code. But right now, it is a chapter in the building code. And it's arguably the strongest building code in the nation for wildfire protection. But when we burn homes that we construct to that in our lab, they do fail in a few areas, and that's where you see the upgrades that are required. So the gutter covers, just to make sure no combustible leaves and material can collect in there and catch an ember. Both panes tempered, and then the fences are not in the building code, so we add that as a requirement to make sure that there's no combustible fencing that can wick the fire to your home. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alexis to tell you more about how you can build affordably to that standard.
Great. Let me share my presentation. Hold on. All right. There we go. So thank you so much, Laura. So my name is Alexis Pelosi, and I'm with the Resiliency Company. And the Resiliency Company is a 501c3, and the focus is really to provide, as it says here, funding, policies, and innovation to help communities live safely at a time when we know that as a result of climate change, right, disasters and hazards are only increasing. It was spun out of an organization called For Good, which was a philanthropic platform that helped finance disaster recovery as part of the critical financial infrastructure for nonprofits in times of disaster. So what the Resiliency Company, as it said in the last slide, right, recently formed, and after the LA wildfires, decided to turn and to really test the theory of all the work that it had been talking about doing around how to finance and how to effectuate change, and look at ways that it could help in LA around the rebuilding after the devastating fires. And so what it did was it set up the Resilient LA Delta Fund. And the idea behind it, which I'm going to talk about, is how to help to provide access to grants and loans to help to rebuild the 12,000 plus homes that were destroyed by the wildfires to an insurable and fire resilient standard. So first of all, looking at it, we know, and I know for those of you that are on the call that are survivors and are looking to rebuild, right, we know that there is a large financial rebuilding finance gap for a lot of folks. So we know that the cost of the original home and then the cost to rebuild, and the gap is, you know, the white part, the $350,000, and the rebuild, oh no, the rebuild part. And so what we're doing here on the last slide is we talk about what the delta is to rebuild to a resilient standard. So again, if you look at the equity and then you look at that new debt, right, that's that gap. What the Resilient Fund does is it covers the gap between building to code and building up to the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard. And so that's that additional cap on the top that provides that of protection. I'll talk a little bit about insurance, which Steve mentioned, and the reason why we've decided to look at the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard as a standard that we're looking to cover the gap for. So again, to give you another sense of sort of the fund, and again, it's grants and loans to homeowners to help them fill this gap. When you look to rebuild, right, there's the cost that you get from your insurance, and the insurance includes often, right, the cost to rebuild up to the updated building code requirements. And the cost to rebuild to the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard is above that because the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard, as Laura mentioned, is above the code requirement. And so the purpose of the fund is to help homeowners make the decision to rebuild to the highest wildfire standard that exists. And that's what Laura was talking about, right? So that is the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard. It is a newer program that was recently adopted, as Laura talked about. And so the parts about it and the reason why we're looking at the IBHS standard is because of what we've seen, how these standards that IBHS has done in the past have been successful. So I want to talk just a minute, and it seems a little odd to turn into talk about Alabama and to talk about hurricanes, but I think it's really important in the context of sort of the value chain proposition in terms of rebuilding and making the choice to rebuild to this higher standard. So, in Alabama, the issue is not fires, it's hurricanes and wind. After two major hurricanes, Hurricane Ivan and Hurricane Katrina, Alabama's insurance market had effectively, collapsed. And so Alabama was looking at and regrouping to try to figure out how they could help and support the insurance market, homeowners, builders, in being able to rebuild. And so what they did was they identified and got behind the single credible science-based and verifiable building code standard that everyone could trust. So homeowners, builders, and insurers. And the fortified standard was the perfect fit. So Alabama then embraced the fortified standard. And today we can see that 7% of, there's a 7% increase in resale value of a fortified home to a non-fortified home. A fortified roof makes a home more attractive to potential buyers, especially in storm-prone areas, and it's proven to experience less severe damage. So what does that tell us as we were sitting and trying to design what the LA Delta Fund would look like? Just the importance of creating a clear and consistent standard in the marketplace, how it can result in an increase in return on resilient investment and stabilized insurance markets. And that's exactly what we're starting to see in the insurance markets today. And so, as I mentioned, the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard is a new standard. It's only from about 2022 that it's been in place. It's now 2025, so 3 years. And we are already starting to see in the recent rate filings from insurers a recognition and a coalescing around this standard. As you can see here are a couple of things that we've seen around, folks who are issuing policies where the Wildfire Prepared Home Plus standard has been met. And then also, the different reductions in rate reductions as a result of meeting the standards. And so what we're starting to see already is insurers moving to and embracing this standard. And as we think about the rebuilding in LA, not only to help and to support everyone who's been impacted, being able to rebuild to the highest wildfire prepared plus standard, but to share the information about it and the importance, because the home that you build today is the home that is going to be around for the next 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 plus years, and is a large financial asset. And so as you are rebuilding, as Laura mentioned, now is the time to look at the wildfire prepared home plus standard. It's much easier to meet in a new construction than in a retrofit context. And so we wanted to help them make sure that if the decision on how to rebuild and to rebuild to the standard was a financial one, that there are resources out there to be able to cover the cost for that. So what we're doing at the Resilient Delta Fund is we're trying to really help and break down barriers around being able to understand and access information about the IBHS standard. We're trying to improve the efficiency. So working with IBHS very quickly to help and to support homeowners who are looking to build to this standard, to have their plans reviewed and to ensure that the choices that they're making can help them meet the IBHS standard. And then most importantly, to be able to build resilience throughout the community. Because again, as Laura mentioned, the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard is specific to a homeowner. But we do know that when it comes to wildfire science as well, the community aspect of it is so important. So the more homes that are built to this higher wildfire standard, the more resilience there is across the community. So we have, as part of the LA Delta Fund, both grants and loans. And so what we've done to start to move forward with the program is we've set up the Pillar program. And this is a platform that everyone can access where you can go in and get some additional information about the IBHS standard, some education resources, and then also a cost estimate and a direct connection to the fund around rebuilding. So you can go and you can learn more about what the IBHS standard is. It can help you estimate the cost of the resilience, which is around 3% of construction costs. What we're starting to see is it's depending on if you are in the just regular code area or in part 7 in the the WUI code, the high fire hazard severity zone. The delta can range anywhere from, I'd say, $3,000 up to $30,000, depending on exactly where you are in the home configuration. And so the Delta Fund provides both grants and loans. The loans, we are currently in the process of talking with various lenders about that and about offering that. And so the loans will likely come online starting in the beginning of next year. And then those will be low cost. What we are doing is we are really trying to work with all of our partners, and here's an example of some of them, to really understand the friction points around making the decision to build to the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard and to make it as easy as possible and as frictionless as possible for homeowners to be able to make that decision. On the grant side of it, so right now we are finishing up a grant playbook that will provide general information for partners who are looking to have a grant program to be able to provide grants to members of the community in terms of how those funds will work and the availability and the accessibility of those. So more on that as well. And so here's just a little bit more information about me and how you can contact me, and then also my colleague, Jonathan. And I really just look forward to talking with you and answering any questions that you have, and appreciate Steve, setting this up so we can talk a little bit about it. I think in particular, in the prefab space and working with a company like Plant Prefab, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to be able to integrate the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard into a rebuild and into the home plans. And the funds that we have can certainly be utilized to help and to support that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexis and Laura. Super interesting. Actually, Alexis, quick question. Have you guys already started providing the grants? I know you're still working on the loans.
So the loans we're still working on the grants. So the way that the grants are going to work. So right now, what we are doing is we are entering into some pilots with a couple of local organizations. So we're working with Habitat for Humanity, Green Line Foundation. We're talking with Postfire LA, the Altadena Collective, and a couple others about setting up some grants with some homeowners who are ready to go. Because part of this, again, is because the program is new and we are learning as we go through it. We want to be able to walk through with some homeowners what this might look like, to understand what the challenges and the obstacles are in terms of rebuilding to the IBH standard, especially at the scale that we're talking about here. And so right now there aren't any grants, that are accessible, but the goal is to set up the pilot program to walk through with a couple of homeowners through nonprofits that exist within the community. And then the nonprofits that exist in the community would then have the funds to be able to provide the grants going forward.
Awesome. Well, let's open it up to questions. Feel free to ask a question or raise your hand, whatever you're comfortable with.
So Steve, Joshua had a question. Joshua, could you see my response? I don't know if it went to everyone. It doesn't say
It
everyone.
did, but let's not assume. I think that's a great question. You should repeat
Yeah,
it.
I did get your
Okay.
response. So I guess I can just email the plans to those addresses, and then you guys
Just
can make.
email it to the IBHS address just to me for the plans. Um, and then
Sorry, let me make sure I have the right one there.
Yeah, I put
The
everybody's email
put
in
the
the chat.
LBLAUL at
yes,
IBHS.
yes.
Okay, I'll do that.
I should share this with everyone. So Joshua asked if we have rebuild plans going to permitting, can we submit them with IBHS can they submit them to IBHS to verify that it meets the criteria before they're finalized and approved? And Laura confirmed yes. In fact, she offered her email address, which I put in the chat, as well as mine and Alexis, and she's happy to review.
And I think that gets to a good point as well, Steve. As Laura knows, and as we've worked together on a number of projects, you can even have your building permits issued as well, and then still have the review and have changes made to them to upgrade to an IBHS wildfire prepared plus home, depending on the specific home. But really, as you looked at Laura's chart previously, the components that make an IBHS wildfire prepared plus home are sort of the sidings, the roof, the coverings of the gutters, the separation of structures. And so a lot of those things aren't things that the building department, changes to those plans would then require you to go back and to have your permit amended or reissued. And so, regardless of where you are in your rebuilding journey, right, I would say that if the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standard is something that you are interested in, to share the plans and have us take a look. There could be instances where it could be a challenge. So, for example, in the manufactured housing space, which is not what plant prefab does, there could be some challenges there if it's a manufactured home that just as of, the home itself doesn't meet the IBHS Wildfire Prepared Plus standards. But in general, most of the homes that we're seeing, and some of which are even under construction now, Laura,
Yeah.
we're talking with them about, well, if you make sure your siding is this and your roof is this and your decking is this, the plans themselves, right? Those things can be changed without having to go back to the city or the county.
And Alexis is exactly right on the material stuff. I will say that we do once in a while run into some challenges because there's some small lots and some really narrow ones in the Palisades. So and Alexis mentioned earlier, working with your neighbors, which is super important. If you don't have 5 feet, just make sure that you have a non-combustible fence between your homes, and then work with your neighbor and ask them. So say there's only 8 feet between your homes. You can share that 5 feet if you both keep plants out of that zone and just have a non-combustible fence. We'll still look over your neighbor's fence, and see if we can get you designated.
There was a question about sorry, let me bring it up again. What's the cost of getting a home certified under the IBHS program?
So we are a nonprofit, so there is a $125 cost. When you are done with all of your construction, you take 5 pictures of your home, one from each corner and one from the front, load it up into our database. You make yourself an account at wildfirepreparedhome.org. And then we'll validate that it looks like it's ready for an inspection. And we will send a third party inspector out to your house. They're trained by us, and we pay them directly. So we don't make any profit on it or anything. We just pay the inspector to go out, collect the data, send it back to us, confirming that your house meets the standard, and then we issue you a certificate via email. And it's good for 3 years. We do check your landscaping once a year and then redesignation at the 3 year point. So that $125 will be good for 3 years.
Awesome. Looks like there may be another question. Oh,
Yeah, Eugene had a question about a particular partner that I had listed, Office of Office, and they're not currently a partner in the pilot grant program that I was talking about, but that's a good flag, and I can certainly reach out to them. On the interest rate for the loans, again, we're in the process of having conversations with local lending institutions and CDFIs about that, and then also, having conversations with some of the other banks as well. And the idea is to buy down the rate. And so that the rate would be lower than market rate. What exactly it is, we don't know at this point because we're still in those discussions. But I think one of the key things that we are really trying to figure out to make it as easy as possible for folks to be able to take advantage of this and to build to the higher wildfire standard is how to fold into, existing loan products that a homeowner might have as part of their rebuilding journey. So whether that's, a traditional loan, from their mortgage holder, if they have a mortgage, to be able to cover the gap, if it's an SBA loan, what is the easiest way to be able to fold in there? And again, it would be, secondary to any of those other loans, and would be a reduced rate.
any other questions?
There's some requirements that I have that are not.
You have that or not on
Andy,
the,
you take a look.
yeah, sure.
I don't think that was for us. All right, going once on questions, going twice. You've got everyone's contact info. Feel free to reach out. Again, you're welcome to come visit the factory if you haven't. We're about an hour north of Los Angeles. Hopefully, you're on our newsletter and we let you know about times for weekly tours. Alexis, Laura, thank you so much for sharing with us tonight. We recorded this. We'll make this available. Super, super informative. And I can tell you, everybody that we're working with currently on rebuild projects, we are seriously encouraging. We're not generally the architect for these projects, so they're working with their architects, but we are seriously encouraging them to build to this standard, build to the IBHS standard, and we're letting people know about the program that you talked about, Alexis. So thank you again.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone, and let us know how we can help.
Yes.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.